Sheriff Marcus Webb had lived in the town of Ashford, Kentucky, for 47 years and thought he knew every dark corner of Pike County. He was wrong. One night in October at 11:34 p.m., when the fog had settled over the valleys so thick you couldn't see your hand in front of you, a call came in. "Marcus, it's Sarah Whitaker." Tommy didn't come home. He was supposed to be back by 8. He knows very well he shouldn't be in the hollow after dark. Webb felt his stomach clench. The hollow. No one spoke of the hollow directly, but everyone in Ashford knew the rules. Don't stay out after sunset, don't go alone, and if you hear singing, turn back immediately. These weren't superstitions passed down from grandfathers. They were survival rules learned from generations of disappearances that the county officially attributed to wild animals getting lost or running away. How long has he been missing? 3 hours. I know the rules say we should wait 24 hours, but Marcus, we're talking about the hollow here. You know what happens to people there. I'm going. You stay here, Sarah. That's an order. Deputy Claire Dawson met him at the station, already geared up. She'd only been in Ashford 6 months, transferred from Lexington, and she still asked too many questions that locals knew better than to voice. "Sheriff, I pulled records on missing persons in Pike County. In the past 70 years, 32 people disappeared in or near the hollow. No bodies ever recovered. What's really going on there?" "Things this town doesn't talk about. Grab the searchlights and emergency packs. We're going in." They drove to the hollow's edge, where Tommy's truck sat abandoned. Driver's door open. Keys in the ignition. His phone on the seat, showing his last text to his mother. "Found something weird at old Hutchins' mine. Gonna check it out." "The old coal mine?" Dawson checked her map. Records show it was sealed in 1952. After a collapse, killed 11 miners. Why would a 17-year-old be exploring a sealed mine? Because teenagers are stupid, and Tommy Whitaker's been obsessed with local history since he was 12. He thinks there's something the town is hiding about that mine disaster. "Is there?" Webb didn't answer, just grabbed his flashlight and started down the trail into the hollow. The fog was supernatural thick, clinging to them like cobwebs, muffling sound, until their footsteps seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. They found Tommy's backpack a quarter-mile in, contents scattered. His camera lay in the mud, lens cracked, but SD card intact. Webb pocketed it without reviewing the photos. Some things you didn't look at in the hollow after dark. "Sheriff, look at this." Dawson knelt by a tree, illuminating scratches carved into the bark. Not natural damage from animals. Deliberate marks forming symbols that Webb recognized, but wished he didn't. "Keep moving. Don't touch anything." The trail led deeper into the valley, where old mine entrances dotted the hillsides like empty eye sockets. Most had been sealed with concrete and rebar decades ago, but someone had been busy. 3 entrance barriers showed recent damage, concrete chipped away, rebar bent. "Someone's been opening these mines," Dawson observed. "Recently, too. Look at the fresh tool marks." They approached old Hutchins' mine, finding the seal completely removed. The entrance yawned open, darkness so absolute their flashlight beams seemed to get swallowed after just a few feet. That's when they heard it. Singing. Not words, exactly. More like vocalization. Multiple voices harmonizing in tones that shouldn't fit together but did, creating a sound that made Webb's teeth ache and his vision blur at the edges. "What the hell is that?" Dawson's hand went to her sidearm instinctively. "The reason people don't come to the hollow after dark. We need to leave, now." "But Tommy is already lost if he went in there." We're not going to find him by getting lost ourselves. But as they turned to leave, flashlight beams appeared in the darkness behind them. Multiple lights surrounding them, and more voices, not singing now, but speaking in low murmurs. Earl Hutchins emerged from the fog, and he wasn't alone. A dozen people from town, all wearing expressions Webb had seen before at town meetings when uncomfortable topics came up and everyone suddenly found reasons to look away. "You shouldn't be here, Marcus," Earl said, his voice gravelly from 50 years of smoking. "Some things the law can't fix." "Earl, Tommy Whitaker's missing. Sarah called me. I'm doing my job." "Your job's keeping the peace in town." "The Hollow keeps its own peace. Has for longer than you've been alive. You know the rules. We all know the rules. I'm not leaving without that boy." Earl's expression shifted to something between pity and warning. "Then you're going to learn what we all learned eventually. What your daddy learned before you and his daddy before him. The Hollow doesn't just take people, Marcus. It feeds on them. And in return, it leaves the town alone. That's the bargain. That's always been the bargain." Dawson stepped forward. "What are you talking about? You're saying this town knowingly lets people disappear? That's insane." "Is it?" Dr. Helen Birch appeared from the group, medical bag in hand like she'd been expecting casualties. "We're the oldest continuously inhabited settlement in Pike County. Every other town founded around the same time died out. Economic collapse, disasters, epidemics. But not Ashford. We thrive. Our crops never fail. Our children are healthy. Nobody gets seriously sick. You've been here 6 months, Deputy. You notice anything odd about that?" Dawson went silent, and Webb knew she was thinking. He'd seen it himself his whole life. The impossibility of Ashford's prosperity. A small Appalachian town that should have died like hundreds of others, but instead maintained population, had good schools, low crime, high life expectancy. Statisticians called them an anomaly. The truth was worse. "The mine disaster in 1952, Webb said slowly, pieces clicking into place. "It wasn't an accident." "No," Earl confirmed. "It was the first feeding. My grandfather was one of those 11 miners. They found something down there while digging. Something old. Something hungry. It killed 6 men before the others understood what it wanted. My grandfather and 4 others made a choice. They sealed themselves in with it, became the first sacrifice, and in return, it promised to protect Ashford. All we had to do was keep it fed." "Fed with what?" "1 person every few years, usually someone from outside who wouldn't be missed. Drifters, hitchhikers, sometimes someone from town who learned too much and couldn't live with it. The Hollow calls to them, and they go willingly in the end. It's like it knows who's ready." "That's murder. You're describing a serial-killing conspiracy." "We're describing survival." Pastor Cole emerged from the darkness, Bible in hand. "I've prayed about this every day for 40 years, Marcus. Begged God for another way. But when you see your children grow healthy while neighboring towns bury kids from preventable diseases, when your crops flourish while others fail, when your people live to 90 while others die at 60, you start to wonder if maybe this is God's plan. A test. Abraham and Isaac. But the sacrifice is real." The singing from the mine grew louder, and now Webb could distinguish Tommy's voice among the chorus. The boy was alive, but changed, his tone matching the others, his humanity bleeding away into whatever harmony the thing in the mine demanded. "We can still save him," Webb said desperately. "No," Earl shook his head. "Once they start singing, they're already gone. The Hollow's in their head now. If you pull him out, he'll just come back. They always come back. Best to let it finish quick. I won't allow this." "You don't have a choice." "Your daddy didn't either when he figured it out. He tried to expose it, threatened to bring federal investigators. You remember what happened to him, Marcus? Webb did remember. His father, Sheriff William Webb, had died of a sudden heart attack while hiking in the Hollow. He'd been 52, healthy, no history of cardiac issues. The autopsy showed catastrophic cardiac failure with no obvious cause. Webb had been 23, fresh out of the academy, and he'd accepted the official explanation because the alternative was impossible. You killed him. The Hollow killed him. We just didn't stop it. Because he was going to destroy everything we'd built, every life saved, every prosperity earned, all of it required by the bargain. Your daddy was going to break that bargain and doom us all. Dawson's voice was shaking. This is insane. We're law enforcement. We can't just— You're new, Dr. Birch interrupted. You still think the law matters more than survival. Give it time. You'll see Ashford's children grow healthy. You'll watch neighboring counties struggle while we thrive. You'll notice that no one here gets cancer. No one has birth defects. No one dies in accidents. And you'll start to understand that sometimes the law is a luxury that survival doesn't allow. The singing reached a crescendo, Tommy's voice soaring above the others in a note of pure agony and ecstasy blended together. Then silence. Absolute, suffocating silence. It's done, Earl said quietly. The Hollow's fed for another few years. Tommy's at peace now. Better than peace. He's part of something older than human understanding. Webb pulled his weapon, pointing it at Earl, then at the others, knowing it was futile. I'm arresting all of you. Conspiracy to commit murder, accessory to murder, kidnapping, every charge I can think of. Pastor Cole stated with sorrowful assurance, No, you're not. Because we are your only possession. We are your community, your neighbors, your church, and your source of health care. You arrest the entire town if you arrest us. Give us a try, and you'll see the deal. If you reveal the deal, the Hollow will no longer defend us. After that, you'll witness Ashford's positive traits all fade away. Do you want that? Is it worth destroying a whole community for justice? Webb's hand trembled. He had dedicated his professional life to following the law, believing in justice, and convincing himself that right and wrong were obvious. But clarity turned to moral quicksand here, in the fog-shrouded darkness, with Tommy Whitaker's last song still reverberating in his ears. You want me to be involved in murder? We're asking you to be complicit in survival. It's what your daddy couldn't accept. It's what destroyed him. Don't make his mistake, Marcus. Learn to live with the guilt like the rest of us. It's the price of peace. Dawson grabbed Webb's arm. Sheriff, we can't just walk away from this. We can't fight the entire town either. They stood there, surrounded by people who'd decided that systematic human sacrifice was acceptable trade for prosperity, while somewhere in the depths of old Hutchins' mine, whatever dwelled there digested Tommy Whitaker's life and prepared to sleep for another few years, its hunger sated, its bargain maintained. Webb lowered his weapon, not because he accepted the logic, not because he agreed with the choice, but because he couldn't see a path forward that didn't end in the complete destruction of everything he'd sworn to protect. Sometimes, he realized, the law breaks against reality. Sometimes survival demands compromises that justice can't tolerate. Sarah Whitaker deserves to know what happened to her son. She does know, Dr. Birch said gently. She's known since the day he was born that eventually the Hollow might call him. Every parent in Ashford knows. It's the unspoken understanding. We raise our children knowing that one day one of them might be chosen. And we accept it because the alternative is watching all of them suffer and die from poverty and disease like the rest of Appalachia. How do you choose? How do you decide who We don't. The Hollow chooses. It calls to them, and they go. Tommy wasn't forced. He felt the call, probably didn't even understand what it meant, but he felt drawn to the mine. That's how it works. The Hollow identifies who's ready, who's appropriate, and it calls them. We just don't interfere. They walked back to town in silence, the fog finally lifting to reveal a clear October night with stars bright enough to read by. Ashford looked peaceful in the distance, house lights warm and welcoming, a community thriving where others failed. Webb went to Sarah Whitaker's house at dawn, finding her on the porch with coffee, dry-eyed and resigned. "He's gone, isn't he?" she asked. "Yes." "Did he suffer?" Webb thought about the singing, the ecstasy mixed with agony, the transcendence and horror. "I don't know. I hope not. But you know the truth now. About the Hollow. About why we're still here, when every other town like us died out." "I know." "And what are you going to do about it, Marcus?" "Because your daddy tried to fight it, and look where that got him. You've got a choice. Live with it like we all do, or join Tommy in the Hollow. Those are the only options." Webb looked at Ashford waking up, children heading to school healthy, and laughing elderly couples walking together decades past when they should have died. Prosperity that shouldn't exist, maintaining itself through systematic sacrifice, hidden as disappearances, nobody officially investigated too closely. "I'll need time to think." "Take all the time you need." The Hollow's patient. It's been here longer than Kentucky's been a state. It'll be here long after we're all gone. The only question is whether you'll spend your remaining years protecting a secret that keeps people alive or destroying it and watching everyone you know suffer the consequences. Webb drove to the station, finding Dawson already there, compiling evidence she'd never be allowed to use. Photos, recordings, witness statements that would never see a courtroom because prosecuting the entire town for conspiracy was impossible, and exposing the Hollow would destroy the very community he'd sworn to serve. "What do we do?" she asked. "I don't know yet." But he did know. He knew that sometimes justice was a luxury, that survival demanded compromises, that the law broke against realities it wasn't equipped to handle. He knew that he'd spend the rest of his career protecting a secret that made him complicit in murder, because the alternative was watching Ashford die, like every other Appalachian town. Slowly, painfully, inevitably. The Hollow's hunger satisfied for now. The bargain maintained. And Sheriff Marcus Webb added his name to the list of people who knew the truth and chose to protect it, joining his father's legacy not by fighting the darkness, but by becoming its unwilling guardian. The call came on a gray November morning when frost covered everything and the sky looked like old bruises. Rebecca Hartley, age 32, had been found dead in her family's ancestral home on the edge of town. No signs of violence. No apparent cause, just stopped living. Webb arrived at the Hartley estate, finding Dr. Birch already there, examining the body with practiced detachment. Rebecca lay on her bedroom floor, eyes open, expression frozen in profound horror. "Natural causes?" Webb asked, already knowing the answer would be more complicated. Her heart stopped. "But Marcus, look at her hands." Rebecca's fingers were bloody, nails torn, tips shredded like she'd been clawing at something. The hardwood floor beneath her showed deep gouges where she'd scratched desperately before dying. "She was trying to get away from something," Dawson observed, photographing the scene. "But there's no sign of an intruder." Windows locked from inside, door barred. She was alone. "The Hartley family has lived in Ashford since it was founded," Dr. Birch said quietly. "One of the original 7 bloodlines. Rebecca was 32. Same age her mother died. Same age her grandmother died. Same age every Hartley woman has died for 6 generations. Webb felt that familiar dread returning. Another bargain? Different bargain? Older bargain. The Hollow is 70 years old. This goes back to 1847 when the town was settled. The founding families made certain agreements to ensure Ashford's prosperity. The Hollow was just the latest arrangement. This one's been active from the beginning. Rebecca's father, Robert Hartley, sat in the living room looking resigned rather than grief-stricken. He was 64, well-dressed, prosperous. His family owned half the commercial real estate in town. "I tried to warn her," he said when Webb questioned him. "When she turned 30, I told her it was coming. She didn't believe me. Thought I was trying to scare her with family superstitions. But it's not superstition, it's the price." "What price?" Robert gestured around the elegant house, the expensive furniture, the evidence of generational wealth. "The Hartley family has never known poverty, never struggled. For 176 years we've thrived when others failed. My great-great-great-grandfather made a deal when he founded this town. 7 families, 7 bargains, 7 different prices to pay. The Hollow's just one of them." What were the other 6? Each founding family pledged something different. The Hartleys pledged our daughters. Every generation, the firstborn Hartley daughter dies at 32. In return, the family prospers financially. Never fails, never falters. Always wealthy. Dawson looked sick. "You're saying you knowingly had a daughter, knowing she'd die at 32? "I'm saying I was born into this bargain, same as Rebecca was. Same as my father and grandfather before me. The alternative is breaking the pact and losing everything. Not just money, everything. The last time a founding family tried to break their bargain was 1923. The Morrison family. Within 6 months, every Morrison in Ashford was dead. Disease, accidents, suicide. The town doesn't forgive broken promises." Webb investigated the other founding families, finding patterns that made his blood run cold. The Cole family, Pastor Raymond Cole's lineage. Their bargain demanded that every 3rd generation, all children born to the family, would be stillborn. Pastor Cole's generation was the 3rd since the last sacrifice. His 3 children, all born dead. His sister's 4 children, all stillborn. 8 dead infants, as payment for the Cole family's influence and respect in the community. The Birch family, Dr. Helen Birch's ancestors. Their price was madness. Every generation produced one member who descended into complete psychosis by age 40. Currently, Helen's cousin David lived in the family's locked attic, having lost his mind at 39. The bargain ensured the Birch family always had medical knowledge and healing ability beyond normal skill. The Montgomery family owned the town's only grocery and the feed store. Their bargain required that one family member per generation must disappear without explanation. Currently, that was Helen Montgomery's brother, who'd vanished 3 years ago. Nobody searched too hard. Everyone knew he was the payment for the Montgomery family's business success. The Patterson family ran the school system. Their price was darkness. Every generation, one Patterson would go blind by age 50. Currently, Thomas Patterson, the school superintendent, wore dark glasses everywhere because his vision had started failing at 49. The bargain guaranteed Patterson children would always be intelligent, ensuring the family's educational legacy. The Whitaker family, Tommy's family. Their bargain was more complex. They didn't lose family members regularly, but when the Hollow needed feeding, It chose from the Whitakers. First, Tommy wasn't the first. His grandfather had been taken in 1987. His great-aunt in 1952, one of the original mine disaster victims. The Whitaker price was unpredictable sacrifice in return for immunity to disease. The Webb family, Marcus's own bloodline. And this was the revelation that broke him. "Your family's bargain is the heaviest," Earl Hutchins explained when Marcus confronted him. "The Webb family pledged to be the keepers. To know all the secrets, bear all the guilt, enforce all the bargains. That's why a Webb has been sheriff of Pike County for 6 generations. It's not elected office, it's inherited duty. Your daddy tried to break the bargain by exposing everything. That's why the Hollow killed him, not just to silence him, but because the Webb family breaking their oath would unravel all 7 bargains. What's the price? What does my family sacrifice? Truth. The Webb family can never speak the truth about Ashford to outsiders. You can know, you can suffer with the knowledge, but you can never expose it. And every generation, one Webb must die serving the bargains, protecting them, enforcing them, dying to maintain them. Your father died for trying to break his oath. You'll die for something else. It's inevitable. The bargain always collects." Marcus thought about his father's heart attack in the Hollow, his grandfather's accidental shooting while stopping a supposed burglary that no one could ever prove happened. His great-grandfather's suicide, that family whispered, wasn't suicide at all. How do I stop this? You don't. That's the point. The 7 families bound Ashford to these bargains when it was founded. We created a town that couldn't fail, couldn't falter, couldn't die like other settlements. But that immortality came at a price. 7 families, 7 different payments, all feeding into the same dark source that keeps Ashford alive. Dawson had been investigating independently, pulling birth records, death certificates, family trees. She spread her findings across the conference room at the station. Every founding family shows the same pattern: unusual deaths, mysterious disappearances, medical anomalies. But the non-founding families show almost no unexpected deaths. It's like the town's prosperity is being paid for exclusively by these 7 bloodlines. They're sacrificing their own to benefit everyone else. That's exactly what's happening, Marcus confirmed. The founding families made the bargains. Everyone else just benefits without knowing the cost. So most of Ashford doesn't even know. Most people suspect something's wrong but don't ask questions. The founding families know the full truth. Everyone else just enjoys the prosperity and doesn't examine it too closely. They spent days documenting everything: the 7 bargains, the patterns of death and sacrifice, the web of secrets that held Ashford together. But documentation meant nothing without the ability to act. "We could expose it," Dawson suggested again, but her voice lacked conviction. "Expose what? That 7 families made deals 176 years ago? With what? There's no entity to arrest, no physical evidence of supernatural bargains? We'd sound insane. And even if someone believed us, what then? Federal investigation, town destroyed, and the founding families lose everything including their lives because breaking the bargains is fatal. So we do nothing? We do the only thing we can. We survive with the knowledge and try to protect people when possible. But protecting people was about to become more complicated. Because the youngest member of the Hartley family, 16-year-old Emma Hartley, had just turned 16 and was showing signs of understanding her family's curse. Marcus found her at Rebecca's grave, studying the family tombstones with grim determination. "Every Hartley daughter dies at 32, she said without looking up. "My mom, my grandmother, my great-grandmother. All the way back." I have 16 years left. How do I live with that? The same way everyone in the founding families lives with it. One day at a time. Did you know? When you were growing up, did you know that being a Webb meant dying for the bargains? Marcus thought about his childhood, the whispered conversations he wasn't supposed to hear, his father's increasing desperation in his final years. I suspected. I didn't want to believe. I don't want to believe either. But Rebecca's dead at exactly 32, just like everyone predicted, which means in 16 years I'll be dead too. Unless I break the bargain. Breaking the bargain kills everyone in the family. You, your father, every Hartley in Ashford. Maybe that's better than living as scheduled sacrifices. Maybe it's time someone broke the chains. Marcus saw his father's determination reflected in Emma's eyes, the same moral certainty that got William Webb killed. Your father tried that. It didn't work. Then maybe I'll succeed where he failed. Webb reported the conversation to the founding families, watching their predictable panic. Emma Hartley represented the thing they feared most, someone willing to break the bargains despite the consequences. We need to handle this carefully, Pastor Cole said at the emergency meeting. If she breaks the Hartley bargain, it could unravel everything. The 7 bargains are interconnected. One fails, they all fail. So what do you suggest? Marcus asked, already knowing he'd hate the answer. The Hollow hasn't fed in only 3 weeks. Usually it's years between feedings. But if we offered Emma early, satisfied the Hollow's hunger ahead of schedule, she'd die now, instead of discovering how to break the bargains. You want to murder a 16-year-old girl to protect your secrets. We want to sacrifice one life to save an entire town. It's the same calculus we've always used. Marcus looked at the founding families gathered in the church basement, prosperous, healthy, burdened with terrible knowledge, and convinced their bargains were necessary evils. He saw his own future in their resigned faces. I won't help you kill a child. Then you're breaking the Webb bargain. Keepers don't refuse to enforce the pacts. That's the deal. I don't care about the deal. Dr. Birch's voice was gentle, but firm. Marcus, your family has kept these secrets for 6 generations. You think you're the first Webb to feel moral conflict? Your daddy felt it. It destroyed him. Don't make his mistake. Don't sacrifice everyone for principle that changes nothing. It changes whether I can live with myself. Can you live with yourself when Ashford collapses? When children start dying from poverty and disease? When this whole community becomes another failed Appalachian town? Because that's what happens if the bargains break. Marcus returned to the station, finding Dawson preparing evidence reports she'd never be able to file. They want to kill Emma Hartley, he told her. Offer her to the Hollow early to prevent her from breaking the bargains. That's premeditated murder. That's everything this town is built on. Premeditated sacrifice for collective benefit. We can't let them. How do we stop them? Arrest the entire founding families? Protect Emma 24/7 forever? She's 16, Claire. She has 16 years until her family curse kills her naturally. Unless she breaks the bargain and kills her entire family, or the Hollow takes her early. Those are her options. They sat in silence, 2 law enforcement officers sworn to uphold justice, complicit in conspiracies they couldn't prosecute, knowing secrets they couldn't expose, trapped in a town where survival demanded cooperation with systematic murder. My transfer request is approved, Dawson said quietly. I'm leaving Ashford next month. I can't do this, Marcus. I can't be part of this. They won't let you leave knowing what you know. The Webb bargain is you can't tell outsiders. I'm not telling. I'm just leaving and never coming back. And if they decide you're too much of a risk? She didn't answer, but they both knew. People who knew too much and wouldn't stay silent had a way of having accidents in Ashford. The town protected its secrets violently when necessary. Marcus spent that night at Rebecca Hartley's grave, reading the family tombstones dating back to 1847. Every Hartley daughter, all dead at 32, their dates of death proving the pattern with mathematical precision. Behind him, the hollow sang its patient song. Somewhere in town, Emma Hartley slept unaware that the founding families were deciding her fate. And somewhere deeper than the old mines, darker than the town's history, the source of all 7 bargains waited for its payments to continue. The Bloodline's price, paid in the children of founding families who bore the cost of prosperity they didn't choose, bound by bargains made by ancestors long dead, dying on schedule to maintain a town that thrived on their sacrifice, while the rest of Ashford lived healthy, happy lives built on horror they weren't supposed to acknowledge or question. Emma Hartley disappeared on a December night when the temperature dropped below freezing and the hollow's fog rolled through town thick as wool. Sheriff Marcus Webb got the call at 2:17 a.m. from Robert Hartley, but the man's voice lacked panic, only resignation. "She's gone to the hollow." I found her diary. She thinks she can break the bargain by confronting it directly. She's wrong, but she's 16 and thinks she can change the world. Webb dressed quickly, strapping on his service weapon, knowing it would be useless against what waited in the hollow. Deputy Claire Dawson was already at the station, despite her approved transfer being days away. "I heard the call on the scanner." "You're going after her?" "Yes." "Then I'll accompany you." One final time. Unaware that a 16-year-old girl was going to try something that would either set them all free or ruin everything, they drove through deserted streets where Ashford slept soundly. Representing all 7 bloodlines, the founding families assembled at the edge of the hollow to watch whether their agreements would stand or fall apart. Pastor Cole emphasized, "She can't break it," his voice bearing the burden of 8 grandchildren who were never born. The deals are finalized. For 176 years, they have held. They cannot be untangled by one girl. "My father thought the same thing," Marcus said quietly. "He thought exposing the truth would break the hollow's power. Instead, it got him killed. But Emma's not trying to expose it. She's trying to refuse it. That's different." Dr. Birch checked her medical bag compulsively. If she succeeds in breaking the Hartley bargain, the others might collapse too. We could all lose our protection simultaneously. The town could become normal, Dawson interrupted. Like every other town, where people live and die naturally, not according to 176-year-old contracts with darkness. Where people live short, hard lives and watch their children die from preventable diseases, Earl Hutchins countered. Where poverty crushes them, and the land poisons them, and they bury kids who should have grown old. That's what normal looks like in Appalachia. They heard Emma before they saw her, her voice raised in defiance, shouting into the darkness of old Hutchins' mine. "I don't accept the bargain. My great-great-great-grandmother made a deal I didn't agree to. You can't hold me to contracts signed before I was born." The hollow's response was a sound that made Marcus's teeth ache. A grinding, scraping noise like continental plates shifting, like reality itself protesting her refusal. They found her at the mine entrance, feet planted, fists clenched, 16 years old, and absolutely certain she could stare down the darkness that had claimed her mother, grandmother, and every Hartley daughter for 6 generations. "Emma, you need to come with us," Marcus called out. "No! I'm breaking this. I'm ending it. Nobody should have to die because their ancestor made a deal with something evil." "It doesn't work like that. The bargains are binding. Refusing yours kills everyone in your bloodline." "Then maybe that's what needs to happen. Maybe 7 families dying is worth freeing an entire town. As the hollow's grinding grew more intense, they began to perceive movement in the shadows, not precisely shapes, but the lack of them, reality bending around something too ancient and incorrect to have a distinct shape. Marcus had never seen such emotion on the normally stoic face of Robert Hartley as he pushed forward. "Please, Emma. I am aware of your anger. I am aware that it is unfair. However, breaking the agreement results in the death of every Ashford Hartley, including you and me. Everyone, including your aunt and cousins. Do you want that? I want to not die at 32. I want to live a full life. I want what everyone else gets. You get prosperity, health, opportunity. You get 16 good years knowing exactly when it ends. Most people don't even get that certainty. I get a death sentence. You get wealth. How is that fair? It's not. None of it's fair. But it's survival." Emma turned back to the mine, her voice rising again. "I refuse the Hartley bargain. I break the contract. Whatever you are in there, you don't own me." The hollow responded, and this time the sound was words. Not English exactly, but meaning that bypassed language and went straight to understanding. Refusal requires replacement. Break the Hartley bargain, and the Hartley bloodline ends. All of it. Tonight. That is the price of freedom. "Fine," Emma shouted. "Then we all die free instead of living as scheduled sacrifices." But before she could say more, Marcus Webb stepped forward, a realization crystallizing that had been building since he learned about his own family's bargain. "Wait. The Webb bargain. We're the keepers. We enforce the pacts. Every generation, one Webb must die serving the bargains." "Marcus, don't," Dawson warned, seeing where he was going. "I'm a Webb. I'm the current keeper. If Emma breaks the Hartley bargain, I can fulfill the Webb price by dying in place of the Hartley bloodline. My death satisfies both bargains. Emma goes free, her family survives, and the Webb payment is made." The founding families erupted in protest, but Earl Hutchins silenced them with a raised hand. He's right. The bargains are interconnected but flexible in payment, a keeper sacrificing himself to maintain the pacts while allowing one to break. That's unprecedented but not forbidden. It might work. "It's suicide," Dr. Birch protested. "It's the job. My father died trying to break the bargains from outside. I'm breaking one from inside, using the rules against themselves. Emma goes free. The Hartley bloodline survives without their curse, and the Webb price is paid. The other 6 bargains remain intact." Marcus turned to the hollow, feeling his father's presence, understanding finally why William Webb had been so desperate to find another way. "I'm Sheriff Marcus Webb, 6th-generation keeper of the bargains. I invoke the Webb price. My life in exchange for the Hartley bargain's dissolution. Emma Hartley and her bloodline go free. The remaining 6 pacts hold. Do you accept?" The hollow's response came after a pause that felt eternal. The keeper offers himself. This is acceptable. But understand, future breakings require future prices. The Hartley bargain ends tonight. The Webb bargain is fulfilled. The other 5 continue until challenged. 5, Pastor Cole's voice cracked. There were 7 bargains. Hartley's ending, Webb's fulfilled. That should leave 5. Why did you say 5? The Montgomery bargain is already broken. The disappeared never return. The payment is overdue. The price must be collected. Helen Montgomery's scream cut through the night as she realized what that meant. Her brother, who'd disappeared 3 years ago as the Montgomery sacrifice, was supposed to have stayed gone permanently, but he'd returned last week, showing up confused and disoriented, but alive. The family had hidden his return, hoping no one would notice. We thought if we kept him hidden, if no one knew he came back. The Hollow knows. Bargains cannot be cheated. The Montgomery bloodline ends tonight. Marcus watched in horror as Helen Montgomery collapsed, clutching her chest. Across town, reports would later confirm every Montgomery family member died simultaneously. Heart failure, strokes, aneurysms, all within the same 5-minute window. 23 people, gone because one family tried to cheat their bargain. "This is what happens when the pacts are broken," Earl said quietly. "This is why we don't fight them." Emma stared at the bodies being discovered via frantic phone calls, at Marcus Webb, who'd just offered his life for hers, at the darkness in the mine that held her town hostage with ancient agreements. "I can't let you die for me. You're preventing me from doing anything. I'm going with this. Being keepers meant knowing the truth, taking responsibility for it, and dying upholding the agreements made by my family. I'm relieving you of your responsibility while I fulfill that one. It's the only way to breach a single agreement without ruining everything. But your entire life lies ahead of you, Emma. Actually ahead, not counting down. Live it. Make this worthwhile." Marcus felt the Hollow's hunger focusing on him as he made his way to the mine entrance. He had anticipated this day ever since he had learned of his family's agreement. Each Webb keeper perished while upholding the agreements. He had just managed to give meaning to that death. "Marcus!" Dawson grabbed his arm. "There has to be another way." "There isn't. And even if there was, this town needs someone to show them that the bargains can be changed. Not broken completely. That kills everyone, as the Montgomerys just proved. But modified. Negotiated. Maybe Emma's freedom shows others there's a path between total compliance and total destruction." He turned to the founding families. "The other 5 bargains continue. But I want you all to remember, we're not powerless. The pacts are ancient, but they're not absolute. They can be challenged carefully. Remember that." Pastor Cole nodded slowly. "Your father tried to smash the bargains with exposure. You're showing us they can be reshaped with sacrifice. That's something we can work with." Marcus entered Old Hutchins' mine, flashlight illuminating walls that weren't quite solid, geometry that bent in directions that shouldn't exist. The Hollow's presence grew stronger with each step, not malevolent exactly, but utterly indifferent to human suffering, a force that had been offered a bargain and accepted it without understanding or caring about what it cost. He thought about Tommy Whitaker, about Rebecca Hartley, about all the people who'd died feeding these bargains. He thought about his father, who'd tried to save everyone and died for it. And he thought about Emma, who'd get to live past 32 now, who'd have the life that every Hartley daughter had been denied. The darkness swallowed him, and Sheriff Marcus Webb felt the Webb bargain collecting its payment. His last thought was hope that his sacrifice showed the remaining founding families that change was possible, that they weren't completely trapped, that the bargains that had held for 176 years could be negotiated with the right price. 6 months after Sheriff Marcus Webb's death, Deputy Claire Dawson sat in her new position as Sheriff of Pike County, a role that should have gone to someone else. But the Webb line needed a keeper, and she knew more than anyone else what that meant. Emma Hartley celebrated her 17th birthday, surrounded by family who shouldn't have been alive, according to the old bargain. She'd lived past 32 now, the first Hartley woman in 6 generations with a future. The remaining 5 bargains continued, The Cole family would sacrifice their third generation's children. Pastor Cole's 8 stillborn grandchildren were payment that couldn't be refunded, but his great-grandchildren might live, depending on how the family navigated the pact in coming decades. The Birch family's madness continued. Dr. Helen Birch's cousin David still lived in the attic, mind shattered at 39. The price of the family's healing ability remained in force. The Patterson family's blindness progressed on schedule. Thomas Patterson lost his vision completely at 50, payment for his children's guaranteed intelligence. The Whitaker family remained vulnerable to the Hollow's hunger. Sarah Whitaker lived with the knowledge that Tommy's death had fed the darkness for a few more years, but eventually it would call again. And the Hollow itself waited in the old mine, patient and eternal, its hunger temporarily satisfied, but never ending. The Montgomery bloodline was gone, wiped out in a single night as punishment for trying to cheat their bargain. Their properties stood empty, businesses closed, a warning to the other families about the price of defiance without proper negotiation. Claire Dawson walked the Hollow's edge regularly, studying the old mine entrances, researching the bargains, looking for ways to modify them further. Marcus had shown her that complete freedom was impossible. The Montgomerys proved that breaking bargains without replacement led to annihilation. But careful negotiation, strategic sacrifice, that could change things incrementally. She'd found documents Marcus had hidden, his research into the original bargains, notes about weak points in the pacts, theories about how the 7 agreements worked together. He'd been planning this for months, looking for a way to break one bargain without destroying everything. "You really think we can change the others?" Emma Hartley asked during one of their regular meetings. The girl had become an activist for what she called bargain reform, trying to find ways to help the remaining founding families reduce their prices. "I think Marcus proved it's possible. Not easy, not without cost, but possible. The bargains aren't absolute, they're agreements, and agreements can be renegotiated if you're willing to pay the right price." They stood looking at Ashford in the distance, still prosperous, still thriving, still carrying its dark secrets. But now those secrets had changed slightly. The Hartley curse was broken. The Webb sacrifice had meaning. The Montgomery annihilation served as warning. The town had learned that the bargains could be challenged carefully, modified through sacrifice, adjusted over time. Not broken. The Montgomerys' fate proved that was fatal, but changed, reshaped, made slightly less terrible. "What happens when the Hollow gets hungry again?" Emma asked. "Same thing that's happened since 1952. Someone from the Whitaker line feels the call. They go to the mine. The Hollow feeds. Unless we find a way to modify that bargain, too." "Is that possible?" Marcus thought so. He left notes about the Hollow's nature. It's not evil, it's just hungry. It accepted the 1952 bargain because it was offered. Maybe it would accept a different arrangement if proposed correctly. Maybe instead of human sacrifice, there's something else it would accept as payment. And if we're wrong? If we try to change the Hollow's bargain and fail? Then whoever makes the attempt dies, just like the Montgomerys. This isn't safe work, Emma. It's dangerous research into forces we barely understand. But Marcus showed us it's possible to die for something that matters, to make sacrifices that change the system instead of just feeding it. Earl Hutchins approached from the trail, moving slower than he used to, age finally catching up to him. He'd been present for every major event in the Hollow's history. The 1952 mine disaster that started the feeding, the subsequent sacrifices, Marcus's final negotiation. "You're planning something," he observed. "I can see it in how you study those mine entrances." Marcus proved the bargains can be modified. I'm trying to understand them well enough to modify more of them. Dangerous work. People died learning what we know now. People are dying maintaining what we have now. Maybe it's worth risking more deaths if we can reduce the overall toll. Earl considered this, then nodded slowly. Your predecessor thought the same thing. Difference is, Marcus understood you can't smash the system. You have to work within it, find its weak points, apply pressure carefully. He died doing that. You prepared to do the same? I'm the keeper now. That's the job. Then you understand what Marcus understood. Being keeper of the bargains means knowing all the secrets, bearing all the guilt, and eventually dying to maintain or modify the pacts. Every web keeper has died serving the bargains. You took that position. That makes you responsible for their legacy. Claire looked at Ashford, at the prosperity built on systematic sacrifice, at the community that thrived while neighboring towns collapsed. She thought about Marcus Webb walking into darkness to free Emma Hartley, about his father trying to expose the truth and dying for it, about 6 generations of keepers who'd carried this burden. Then I'll die trying to make those bargains less terrible. That's a legacy I can accept. Emma squeezed her hand. You're not alone. I'm alive because of Marcus's sacrifice. I'm going to help however I can. We'll research together, plan together, find ways to modify the remaining bargains. Starting with the Hollow? Starting with understanding what it actually is. Marcus's notes suggest it's not supernatural. It's geological. Some kind of organism or entity that lives in the deep mines, existed before humans came here, accepted the 1952 offering because it was hungry, and the miners accidentally communicated their desperation in a way it understood. If it's not supernatural, maybe it can be reasoned with. Or maybe it's just a predator that learned humans make good food. Either way, understanding it better gives us leverage for negotiation. They walked back to town together, keeper and freed sacrifice, planning ways to reshape bargains that had held for nearly 2 centuries. Not breaking them, that was fatal, but modifying them, negotiating better terms, finding ways to reduce the price while maintaining Ashford's protection. The work would take years. People would die in the attempts. But Marcus Webb had shown them that change was possible, that the bargains weren't absolute, that strategic sacrifice could free others from their obligations. Ashford continued thriving, built on darkness it had learned to negotiate with, rather than simply accept. The 7 bargains had become 5, with 1 family annihilated and 1 curse broken. The remaining pacts held, but now everyone knew they could potentially be modified. The founding families met regularly with Claire, sharing their burden, researching their bargains, looking for weaknesses that could be exploited carefully. They'd learned from the Montgomery annihilation, cheating the bargains was fatal. But negotiating them, offering appropriate substitutes, finding alternatives, that was possible. And in Old Hutchins' mine, the Hollow waited patiently. It had fed recently. It had accepted the Keeper's sacrifice in place of the Hartley bloodline. It had punished the Montgomerys for breaking their pact. It was ancient, patient, and utterly indifferent to human concepts of justice or mercy. It had been offered bargains, and it accepted them. When bargains were broken, it collected the price. When bargains were modified with appropriate payment, it accepted the modifications. It didn't care about human suffering. It simply existed, hungered, and responded to the terms offered to it. The darkness that Ashford had built itself around. The hungry entity that kept the town alive in exchange for scheduled sacrifice. The Hollow would feed again. The remaining bargains would collect their prices. But thanks to Marcus Webb's sacrifice, the founding families now knew that change was possible. Incremental, dangerous, costly change, but possible. Sheriff Claire Dawson stood at her predecessor's grave, reading the headstone that labeled him a hero who died in the line of duty. The town didn't know the full truth, that he'd walked into darkness voluntarily, negotiated with the source of their prosperity, died to free a 16-year-old girl from her family's curse. But the founding families knew. They'd remember. And they'd work with Claire to continue what Marcus started. The slow, dangerous process of modifying bargains that had held Ashford hostage for 176 years. Not freedom. Not yet. Maybe never. But something better than total enslavement to agreements made by people long dead, binding children not yet born to prices they'd never agreed to pay. Ashford's new bargain, survival bought with sacrifice, prosperity maintained through darkness. But now, with the knowledge that the terms could change, the prices could be negotiated, and heroic people willing to die for something better could reshape the agreements that held their town together. The small town secrets continued. The dark discoveries remained hidden from outsiders, but internally, Ashford had learned something crucial. They weren't powerless. The bargains weren't absolute, and with enough courage and sacrifice, change was possible. Even in a town where darkness held the deeds and ancient hunger waited in abandoned mines, even where founding families paid terrible prices for collective prosperity, even there, hope survived. Dangerous hope. Costly hope. Hope bought with blood and maintained through strategic sacrifice. But hope, nonetheless. And in Ashford, Kentucky, in the heart of Appalachia, where most towns died, but this one thrived, that hope was the most revolutionary thing of all.